Joy Harrington. I'm your host, and today we're going to talk about navigating the unthinkable without it becoming your identity. This is a poll that I put up on my Instagram a little bit ago, asking people, would this be helpful to have a podcast talking about how to go through incredibly challenging things without them completely taking over your life and it becoming who you are? Because oftentimes when we go through tragedy, it kind of becomes this identity that we start to wear. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I think everybody's process is different and everyone walking it is different. And a lot of times people will take that identity and use it for good things. We see people create foundations or create businesses or nonprofits, right? That help people that are going through something similar. And they do that because they've kind of taken on this identity of, hey, this is a big part of my story. And now this will continue to be a big part of my story. So I'm not saying that that's good or bad or wrong. I don't think that it is good or bad or wrong or right. I think everybody's going to handle it differently. And I believe so strongly that we are here for so much more. We are here to continually level up. We are here to continually use things that come into our life as an opportunity to become better, to become greater versions of ourselves, and that actually struggle and hard things are where we grow. We can, as humans, spend so much of our time bubble wrapping ourselves. We really want to avoid hard things. We try so hard to avoid pain in relationships, right? We don't like to risk ourselves. We don't like to risk our hearts because what if we get hurt again? What if we get betrayed again? What if fill in the blank happens? And so we bubble wrap ourselves, or we put up these defenses, or we have all of these rules around, well, if I'm going to do this, then I have to have that because we somehow think that's going to keep us safe. And we're constantly looking to stay safe and not get hurt. And we aren't realizing that, number one, we're the one that decides what we make everything mean. So we're the one that gets to decide, was this a horrible thing for me? Or was this a growth opportunity thing for me? Was this a good thing for me? And within that, we have the ability to experience either that it's a horrible thing or that there's growth. Sometimes it's all of it too, right? But whatever meaning we are assigning to it is what we're going to get out of it. So let's dive into some of the things that I came up with as I was sitting back and thinking about my life and how I literally walked through my two biggest fears. I don't know if you guys have like big fears that you know or like big fears of yours. And it's not like I sat down and like wrote them out ever, but they were just kind of in the back of my head. Like I knew one of my biggest fears was getting cheated on, right? Being with someone, them not picking me back. And then number two, biggest fear, losing a child, straight up, right? I think after you become a parent, that's everybody's fear who's a parent. Like you've all thought about it at some point in time. Like, how would I even exist after I lose a child? And my situation is slightly different in the fact that our son only lived for one day. And in that, I think it was a little bit easier because we didn't have years and years and years of memories with him, of him being part of our family dynamic that then we had to adjust to. In many ways, our family dynamic stayed the same. And in that, I do recognize that I think it was easier as opposed to losing a child that's been in your family for years and years and years. I think that would be more challenging. And so I do recognize that. But as I was thinking back, the one thing that I've been so proud of myself for is that it did not become my identity, that I'm not someone walking around having this now be all that I talk about, all that I bring to the table. It's all that I care about. It's like my whole life's purpose now. And remember, I preface this by saying, if that's your route and your way of processing, more power to you. I'm not saying that that's good or bad. I just personally have been someone that has struggled with identity, right? So I've been the middle child out of a lot of kids that has always said, do I matter? Am I noticed? Am I seen? And it's very easy for me to take things on and make it my identity. And I think when you walk through betrayal specifically and you deal with infidelity or things like that, one of the first questions or thoughts that comes up is, well, what's wrong with me? Why would someone who was with me want someone else? Clearly, there's something wrong with me. And because it feels so personal, even though it's not, when you understand about addiction and a lot of the patterns and behaviors there, because it feels so personal, it truly feels like an attack on your identity. And it's very easy to then become someone that wants to live out of that or up to that. And I'm going to explain what that means. I think growing up, we all have stuff written on our page, right? We're like this blank slate and we all have stuff written on our page because as we were growing, the way that our parents handled things or that we observed other people handle things or what society was saying or whatever it was, the way that we processed it wrote things on our page, beliefs about ourselves, beliefs about the world, beliefs about how things worked, right? This constant reinforcement of you, your worth, your value, if you're seen, if you're not seen, if you're special, if you're not special, how the world works, how money works, how love works. Literally, all of that was written on your page based on what you were observing from your family, friends, the world, all of that. Now, based on what was written on your page, you either desire to disprove that. So you're going to live in such a way where you're going, that's not true about me. I'm going to disprove that. Or you are going to try to live up to what was written on your page. So with your parents, maybe they said something negative about you, or maybe they had some sort of thought about you and about who you were that really bothered you. And maybe they didn't even mean it as a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing, but you didn't like it and it bothered you. And now you are determined to not be that person, right? Or to not be that thing or whatever, because it really irks you. And so now you find yourself bucking at that and you're like, I'm going to prove that wrong. On the flip side, we can feel a lot of pressure because we were also praised for certain things, or we had things spoken over us that we were told we were, or that we were going to do, or that we got to live up to. And now we are trying to constantly go prove that that's true through what we're doing, how we're showing up. So, based on what was written on your page, you are constantly trying to either live up to it or disprove it. So then when something big comes into your life, like infidelity or betrayal or something that can really shake your identity, something that really takes something out of your life that you really thought you were certain of. So for me, when I went through our marriage story and everything happened, it completely ripped my identity out from under my feet because I was like, well, who even am I? I've been this devoted wife and mother. And apparently that was all for nothing, right? And then when you lose a child, again, it can be very identity shaking because you had this whole picture of motherhood and spending the next few years with a baby and a toddler and raising them and how your life was going to look, right? So it very much changes your identity. So for me, it's very easy to take things on or let them shape my identity. So when I say I'm very proud of myself for that, it's because I know what's written on my page and I know what I am intentionally creating new and how I am intentionally choosing to walk as someone who is not burned by the fire and doesn't even smell like smoke. That comes from one of my favorite Bible stories where it talks about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they were all thrown in the fire for praising God and disobeying the laws, right? That said that they couldn't. They were thrown into a furnace. They should have died. Jesus showed up, walked around in the fire with them. They came out, and it says they didn't even smell of smoke. And I remember when we went through our marriage story telling Peter, I don't even want to smell like smoke. I want this to be such a completely different story that people don't even smell the ash and the smoke or anything on me. Because in my opinion, I think smelling like smoke kind of negates being a person that always wants to tell people how hard you've had it, right? Or how bad it was for you, or has a reason for why you couldn't do better or have it better. It almost becomes like this crutch maybe, or maybe crutch isn't even the right word. Maybe it's an excuse or it becomes a reason in your mind of why you can't do what you want to do, be who you want to be, have what you want to have. And it's very easy when you go through betrayal to let that come into your marriage and be the reason why you can't have the marriage that you want. And that's really easy because you don't see a lot of couples that make it through that do have a marriage that's like incredible, right? And I remember I looked for that when we went through our story and I was like, I don't even see any couples that have what I would hope to have. Oh, well, guess like we're going to be the first, right? I didn't let that stop me, but I was like, come on, like where are the examples? Where is this? So, anyways, I say that I'm proud of myself for that because I know it was written on my page. I know what I'm trying to change as far as my own patterns go and things like that. How you process, I really, really, really want to preface this podcast correctly. How you process is not right or wrong. How you walk through things is not right or wrong. How long you take to heal or to grieve is not right or wrong. Who you are in that is not right or wrong. What you need in that is not right or wrong. You're not messing it up, and you get to be who you are as you are with what you need and how you feel in the time frame that you have, and it's not right or wrong, and don't compare it to anybody else. There are real parts of grief that in a lot of ways you can't even control. So there's different versions of grief, right? There's complicated grief. There's these like, I don't even know. I was looking it up where I think it's called PSG. It's a certain type of like grief disorder that can happen. So I first of all want to say with this podcast that if you are doing this differently and if you feel like you're struggling with it with your identity, that is okay. I'm not more right than you. I'm not doing it better than you. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't tell yourself that you're doing it wrong. You're not. That's not what this podcast is about at all. Everyone's situation is unique to them, and it's going to require you following what feels good and that you think you need for you. It's not about what Joy thinks. It's not about what anybody else thinks. It's about what you need and what feels good for you. And honestly, when I first went through grief for the first time was after our marriage story. That's what really had me start really leaning into trusting myself because I had to figure that out. I had to navigate that. I had to start going, okay, what do I think I should do? What do I think I need? How could I choose to start like healing this, right? And I could listen to other people and I could hear what they were doing. And then I would take what fit for me and what didn't. So I would like to encourage you to do the same thing. Take what fits for you. Don't take what doesn't. Okay. Take the meat, discard the bones. A couple of things that I think really, really help when you are walking through the unthinkable and you don't want it to become this negative attachment or negative identity or belief in your mind that's going to keep you from your full potential and your full birthright. First of all, is the idea that you're somehow doing it wrong or there's something wrong with you. Let me just say that. The first thing that came to mind for my first grief is like, what's wrong with me and how am I doing it wrong? The second time around with having Sterling and him dying was, wow, I fucked it up. And what's wrong with me? And I'm doing it wrong and blah, 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 right? So first of all, when you are walking through grief, it requires so much acceptance of yourself, grace with yourself, gentleness with yourself, because what you resist always persists. Resisting looks like telling yourself that you're wrong or that you're effing it up or that you shouldn't be still feeling this way or that you should be farther along or that you, whatever you want to should on yourself or shame yourself or tell yourself that you're wrong about, that is resistance. Acceptance will speed up your process. Acceptance will help you actually move through. Acceptance will allow it to come through and come out, come through and come out. And that's what we really want to do, especially when it comes to emotions, thoughts, all of it, letting it come through and come out, letting it flow instead of getting stuck and stored within us. So radical acceptance. Don't buy into the story that you're doing it wrong or that you should be fill in the blank or whatever it is. Okay. That's number one. Number two, what you focus on expands. The last 9 months has been the biggest mental battle of my life because my mind wants to focus on what happened, constantly reliving it, constantly going back to if only I had done this, if only I had done that, if only I had, right? My mind wants to constantly think about what could have been, what should have been. My mind wants to constantly tell myself that I messed it up, right? All of those things. And it is a constant taking captive of every thought and choosing my thoughts intentionally and deliberately and choosing what I want to focus on. Because if I let myself focus on that, I can spiral real fast. If I let myself just play that and play that and play that and play that, I could be literally depressed in bed, wondering why I'm still alive to these kids because these kids probably could use a better mom, whatever it is, right? It could be real bad, real fast. It is a practice. Let me just say that again, a practice, not a perfect. It's a practice of taking your thoughts captive instead of letting them run the show, because you are not your thoughts and your thoughts aren't yours. I really want you to hear me with that. It's a big part of what I do with coaching people is recognizing that your thoughts are not yours, not always, and you are not your thoughts. You are separate from your thoughts and you are separate from your feelings, from your emotions. And you have to practice separating yourself from your feelings and your thoughts so that you can observe. So you can say, oh, I see that thought trying to come in. I see that story trying to come in. I see those emotions trying to come in. I'm going to let them flow through. I'm going to let them flow out. And I'm going to choose something different because your thoughts are what actually control your feelings. The story you're telling yourself is going to produce a certain emotion. So if I'm telling myself I'm a shitty mom and I fucked it up and everything else, I'm going to have some real shitty emotions. I'm going to feel angry. I'm going to feel sad. I'm going to feel mad, right? All of those things. I can choose to tell myself something different. I can choose to tell myself God has a plan. God loves me. God is working it all out for my good. This is for my blessing and my favor. I choose to believe that. I choose that that will be my reality. And when I choose to believe that, I'm filled with faith. I'm filled with hope. I'm filled with different emotions. And I really want you to recognize that you have a choice when it comes to the thoughts that you think and the feelings that you feel. That being said, there's an appropriate time to feel sad, to feel mad, to feel angry. It's a big part of the intentional work that I do with my clients, but also in the courses that I provide. There is an intentional time to go in, to feel specific feelings, to move them through your body, and then to come back out again. It's not a place to live 24/7 without intentionality behind it. And the first time I went through grief, I didn't understand this. And people just told me, like, you need to let those feelings out. So, like, you need to just like be in them. And I thought that meant just let my brain keep going and like sit in those emotions all day. Well, that didn't make me feel very good, right? Journaling when I felt those emotions coming up definitely helped. Moving my body now that I know different ways to process things out of my body, when I feel those emotions coming up, helps. I feel some release and then I get to choose, okay, what am I going to focus on now? What is the story I'm going to tell myself about all of this? And this is really where walking by faith comes in. And I've done a whole webinar on that called Walking by Faith. It is where we choose to believe before we have any external evidence for what we are believing. And I believe God when He told me this promise with this boy. I believe God when He promised him to me years and years and years ago and gave me his name when I was pregnant with Scarlett. I believe that this is for my favor, this is for my good, this is for my blessing. I believe that soon, someday, I'm going to look back and thank God this happened. I choose to believe that now before I have any external evidence for it, before my reality changes, before I see that this is for my good, because I know that I get to choose what I focus on. And what I focus on is what I will see evidence for. I get to choose what I focus on. I also get to choose my perspective. And when you choose your perspective, you literally choose your reality. People think that their reality is so not within their control. And I'm here to tell you, your reality is 100% within your control because your reality is just your perspective. Your perspective is literally the story you're telling yourself about everything. This is why I always ask the question, what are you making it mean? What are you making it mean that that person just did that or said that? What are you making it mean that your spouse ignored you? What are you making it mean that your spouse cheated on you? What are you making it mean that you lost your child? What are you making it mean? Because you get to choose what you tell yourself. And when I choose what I tell myself, I literally create my own reality. I create my own perspective, and I get to create a world and a reality that I want. And you get to too. And some people are going to be like, well, that's brainwashing. Yeah, it is on purpose. Literal brainwashing on purpose. But guess what? It's my world. I have to live in it. I get to live in it for the rest of my life. Why would I not choose to align my thoughts with what God says? Why would I not choose to align my thoughts with something higher? Why would I not choose to align my thoughts with how I want to feel and what I want to think and what I want to believe? Why would I just let my thoughts go towards something horrible or negative or shameful or depressing? I get to choose. And God says repeatedly in the Bible to put your thoughts on things above, to pick something higher, to focus on what is noble and pure. So I'm going to choose to align my thoughts there. Something that really, really helped me when we went through our marriage story, and it really triggered the hell out of me when I first heard it, but it really did end up helping me long term, was I went to a Brendan Burchard conference, and he stood up there and talked about everybody who really felt like they had been through something really painful and really hard. And he looked the audience in the eye and he said, I hate to tell you this, but you're not special. My kids just walked in the door. They just got home with their nanny. Sorry. Anyways, he goes, you're not special because you're not the only one. You think out of almost 8 billion people on the planet, you're the first person to ever go through something like this, or that what you've gone through is so horrible. I bet there's someone who's gone through something far worse. And man, did that sting, because I was in this place of I was wronged and I was angry and I was hurt and I wanted to be validated in how wronged I was. And I think that that's normal. And I think that that's a normal part of grief, but it will not serve you to stay in that place, because that's a very victim mentality. And victim mentality keeps you chained. Victim mentality keeps you attached to the event that happened. Victim mentality gives that event power over you, because you're basically saying, I'm so fixated on this thing that happened. It ruined me. It hurt me. It wronged me, right? All of these things. That thing takes all of your brain space, all of your emotion, all of your future potential, right? It's going to take everything from you. It's very disempowering. So while it very much hurts to hear, and please hear me, because there's probably a time and a place, there is a time and a place in grief to be the victim. There's also a time and a place to hear you're not the only one, you're not the first. And actually, what you've gone through is probably not even the worst of what people have gone through who've lived on the planet, right? That is freeing in regards, that is freeing in the fact that you begin to realize, hey, if other people can make it through, I can too. You begin to realize, hey, I'm not the only one. So therefore, there's not something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not messing it up. I didn't, I'm not the only person. I'm not the fuck up. I'm not the screw up, right? You begin to realize, hey, maybe there's nothing wrong with me. And that's incredibly freeing to realize. And you should realize, because you don't want to attach yourself to the thing that happened, because the thing that happened is not your fault. You didn't cause it. It's not something that you have to carry. You get to release it. I want you to let it be almost like an emotion that comes in. You get to experience it and then you get to let it go. We take things on as an identity when we attach ourselves to them, and the fact that it's somehow our fault, or we caused it, or this was, somehow us, right? And we attach ourselves to it instead of letting it be an experience that comes in. We experience it and we let it go. It needs to be that because that is what it is. It's an experience that you walked through in your life. You got to experience a wide range of emotions, lessons, learning about yourself, learning about others, learning about life. You want to glean those, take the parts that help you, the parts that enlighten you, the parts that make you more soft, that give you wisdom, that give you grace, that give you empathy, that give you compassion, and then you let it go because that is what it's about. That's what it's about. And when you can recognize that there is so much freedom there is so much freedom for you. Something that can really help you when you're navigating grief is to visit the future you in meditation. I do this a lot, and I have some meditations on the podcast that might help you. But visit the future you who's already healed. Visit the future you who has experienced healing, who's experienced freedom, who's moved on, who's had her life change, who is living the life that you know that you're here for and that you want. Because you need to see her and know that it's coming and it's possible and that you will get beyond this. You need to know that you will get beyond this because that's the truth. Stuff like this, when it happens, it can feel like it's going to last forever. It literally slows down time. Time feels like an eternity when you go through stuff like this, when you're in grief specifically. And it's hard to remember that in the span of 100-year life or 90-year life, whatever it is, this is literally a drop in the bucket. And 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road, it's going to be completely different for you. You're going to have an amazing life. You're not even going to remember this. And that can be very, very hard when you're in the moment. And so something that can really help you instead of staying stuck in this moment is to visit that future you that's 10 years down the road and see that you make it. See that you heal. See that good things happen, that that's coming to you, that life is going to be different, that you are going to be different, that you're going to feel different. So visit that future you and get evidence for that because you need that hope. You need to be able to hold on to that. And then let that be your true reality, even now. Even now, when you feel the feelings and you see the external reality that sucks, you choose to go, no, I know what I saw. I know what I saw for future me. I know what I saw with my future coming, with that vision that I saw. And that is my actual reality. This current external reality right now isn't my real reality. I'm not going to be staying here. I'm going to be changing. I'm going to be moving on. So I refuse to believe it. I'm going to live from that future me. I'm going to live from that future promise that I have. Honor the body and release emotions as they come up and as you feel them and you move them through. I did a podcast about this too, about honoring the process while moving forward. That's what it's called. So you can listen to that and that will help. But honor the body because the body definitely holds on to emotions. It has feelings, and choosing to let them out, choosing to release will bring great freedom for you. Even when your head knows that you have a different reality, the body still will have to release emotion. And that's been my biggest thing that I've been walking through the last 9 months. My head knows a different reality. My body is still catching up. That's okay. Honor the body, but don't stay there. You do that with radical acceptance. Like I started this podcast with radical acceptance, being curious, telling yourself it's okay. I literally tell myself that, especially if like anxiety comes or tears come or insomnia comes or whatever it is, I tell myself it's okay. This is totally normal. Given the fact that I went through fill in the blank, this is completely normal. This is okay. There's nothing wrong with me. This is totally normal. And guess what? I'm safe and I get to release. I get to do that and I still love myself. And this is all working out for me, right? I just choose what I'm speaking over myself and what I'm telling myself as I move that through. That's how you drop the resistance to it being a thing. We can have resistance to it because we don't want to acknowledge it, or we don't want it to be true, or we don't want it to be there, or we think if we just distract ourselves or shove it down, it'll go away. That's resistance. And what you resist persists. So your invitation is to instead see it, be honest about it, move it through, tell yourself it's okay, drop all expectations you have of yourself right now. All expectations, all shoulds, telling yourself that you have to do it a certain way, that it needs to look a certain way, all of it. Drop all expectations and just have radical acceptance and grace and love for yourself. All right, that's what I came up with for you today. Would love to hear your feedback on Instagram. Go shoot me a message. Would love to hear from you. It's at joyharrington.ig. Don't forget, Fully Feminine Mastermind is enrolling right now. This is the only thing that I'm spending my time and my energy on. I have no one-on-one coaching open. I'm not doing anything else. This is the one thing that I'm going to pour myself into for the rest of the year. And then we're going to see. I don't know. I'm seeing what next year is going to hold after that. So if you are interested, the link is in my bio on Instagram. This is for women that really want to lean into their feminine and for wanting to level up with other women. I wanted to be really intentional with the friendships I cultivate the rest of this year, that they're women that really want to prioritize importance to their marriage and supporting their husband, supporting their kids, while also being a really powerful, feminine, intuitive woman, wife, mom, leader in their home. So that sounds like you. Would love to chat with you about it or to see you in the group. All right, bye. I'll see you on the podcast next week.